Hi, I'm Zaylee, and welcome to my rhombocosa dodecahedron of interests. Today we're in the Christmas corner. With the holiday just around the corner, I'd like to talk about one of my favorite Christmas traditions, the destruction of public property. The public property in question is a 40-foot tall straw goat constructed every year during the Christmas season in Gävle, Sweden. Ever since the first giant goat was built in Gävle in 1966, it's been less of a question of if someone is going to burn it down, and more of a question of when and how. But we'll get back to that. First, I'd like to talk about what exactly the Gävle goat is. There's a tradition in Sweden and other Scandinavian countries that involves decorating with little goats made of straw and tied with red ribbon. These are called Yule goats or Julebak in Swedish. We know the Yule goats are pagan in origin, but we're not entirely sure what that origin is. One suggestion is that the Yule goat is connected to Thor's goats, Tangnjoster and Tangrisnir. They pulled his chariot and could provide food when the god needed it. He would simply kill and cook them, and as long as the bones were intact, he could resurrect them the next morning with Mjolnir. While none of the stories we have of them today are specifically linked to Christmas or even Yule, it's still possible the Yule goat could be derived from them. Another possible theory is that it comes from an old belief that the last sheaf of grain from that year's harvest contained the spirit of the harvest and was bundled up and saved for Yule. Because many harvest deities have goat-like features, the bundles could have been made into the shape of goats to honor them. Whatever the origin may be, the traditions associated with the Yule goat have changed over time. At one point, the goat was thought of as an invisible spirit that would appear to make sure Yule preparations were done right. And in the early 19th century, the Yule goat took on a gift-giver role, with one of the men of the family dressing up as the goat and giving out presents. In the later half of the 19th century and into the 20th century, the Yule goat was replaced in this role by Santa Claus. Nowadays, the Yule goat is primarily used as a decoration or Christmas tree ornament. Some towns and cities will erect large versions around Christmas, like the Gävle goat, which was the first of its kind. So now that we know what a Yule goat is, what's up with the Gävle goat? The first one was built in 1966 and was conceptualized by advertising consultant Stig Gävlen. The goat was constructed on December 1st by the Gävle Fire Department, who went on to build it for 20 of the 55 years it's been around, which I find to be a fun little irony. It made it all the way until New Year's Eve before someone decided it would be fun to burn it down. Fortunately for the guy who funded it, one Harry Strom, the goat was insured and he was able to get his money back. However, it seems he wasn't too keen on funding it again, as a group of businessmen known as the Southern Merchants took over after that, more than likely assuming that the burning of the goat was simply a one-off. While the goat survived the next 2 years, after that was the longest period of years in a row where it was destroyed. From years 1969 to 1980, the goat was burned or destroyed, sometimes even twice, every single year. The Southern Merchants actually got so tired of their goat being burned down that in 1971 they stopped making goats, and the Natural Science Club of the School of Vasa started making them instead. Their first goat wasn't nearly as tall, only about 6.5 feet to the original's 40-ish feet, but it was still quite popular, which is why they decided to continue making them even after 1986, when the Southern Merchants started making the main one again. As of the time I'm recording this video, the goat has been destroyed 37 out of the 55 years it has been constructed. Most years, precautions are taken to stop the goat's destruction, but this definitely doesn't stop people from trying. Some of the precautions that have been taken to stop the destruction include adding fencing, installing cameras, spraying it with a fireproof liquid, spraying it with water so it would freeze, making it harder to burn, adding another fence, hiring guards, and hiring guard dogs. Because the goat has been burned down so many times and there have been even more attempts, extra supplies are ordered to repair the goat if necessary. As long as the goat is burned down before the 13th of December, significant in that it is the feast day of St. Lucia, the goat will be rebuilt. One of my favorite things to do is go on the Gävle Goat Wikipedia page, where it has a timeline of each year, security additions made to stop the goat from burning, whether it burned or not, when it was destroyed, how it was destroyed, and any notes there might be about that particular year. I like to look through it and see which ones were burned super early, like in 1970 when the goat was burned a mere 6 hours after its construction, or I'll look for any that have interesting notes. My two personal favorites have to be the ones from 2001 and 2005. In 2001, a tourist from Ohio was arrested for burning down the goat and supposedly claimed in court that he thought burning the goat was a completely legal tradition. Needless to say, he was sent back to the United States. Even better though, in 2005, the goat was burned through use of a flaming arrow shot by two men, one dressed as Santa and the other as a gingerbread man. As of this year, if the goat survives, this will be the 5th year in a row it will have survived, making this the longest period of time without the goat being burned down. That doesn't mean there weren't attempts though, as there were some in both 2018 and 2019, and even this year, but none actually ended up succeeding. On Sunday, December 12th, 2021, the smaller goat made by the Natural Science Club was burned down, and during the same weekend, someone tried to jump the fence to the main goat while drunk. Only time will tell if the main goat will continue to be safe or if the streak will be broken. If you ever have a minute or two to spend on something completely trivial, I highly recommend checking out the Gävle Goat Wikipedia page and reading through the notes on the various different years. Some of them are quite amusing. I also find it pretty amusing that the only Wikipedia article under Seymour at the bottom of the page is Baby Jesus Theft, which is also a pretty enjoyable read. I hope you enjoyed learning about the Gävle Goat, and I wish you happy holidays, whether you celebrate Christmas, Yule, Hanukkah, or any other holiday this season.